Okay, this how-to video is going to talk about import and export of IPC 2581 files from the Cadence PCB tools. So the IPC 2581 file is a single XML file that can be exported from the Cadence PCB tools and used for PCB fabrication, PCB assembly, PCB test. Rather than generating all the different file types, so your Gerbers, your netlist files, your pick and place data, your bill of materials, you can actually just output this single XML file and use it for all of the different assembly or PCB fabrication processes. If we look at the IPC2581.com website, so IPC2581.com, there's lots and lots of information about why you should be using the IPC output, who they are, what the fabrication is, what to use. There's some viewers, there's some test cases you can use. There's even a list of kind of some PCB assembly or fabrication houses that are generating this type of data. You can join and support the information, also support this this IPC standard. Could be quite a useful option when outputting data. So to generate a file, we can look at the export IPC 2581 option. This gives us effectively some default options for what we want to export, and there's different functional modes if we want to do fabrication, assembly, test, or you can just do a user-defined one that contains all of the data in one go. There's different IPC standards, different output units, different orientations for your component pins, what the name of the file is. We can also exclude or export properties, so we can do a right mouse button here and add properties and include things like component-based properties or net-based properties into the file. If we look at effectively the film creation tab, this is the artwork films that we want to use, and there's also a domain selection, so we can choose whether the artwork films that we generate are either going to be included just for artworks, for IPC data, for PDF export, or for the visibility panes. Once we're happy with that, there's a layer mapping option that will choose, so you specify what are the outer copper layers, the inner copper layers, what are the documentation layers, solder mask and solder paste, and then your various images if you've just got some miscellaneous layers like silk screens or maybe just the board profile. Once you're happy with that, we then click on export and the film gets created, or the file gets created rather than the film. I get some warnings about I've got multiple packages for some of my mechanical parts, so they're not going to be included in the data. If we actually look at the job file, so let's go to the job directory. There's my single XML file for the board that I could open and have a look at a text if I wanted, and that would be the file that you would send to your fabricator. So one of the advantages of the IPC 2581 data is you can also now import this data back into a board. So if I had a revision A and a revision B and I wanted to compare some differences visually, I can actually do that. So let's just try and simulate that here. So I'm just going to turn on the top layer for now. Let's just make some changes to some of the tracking so we can see this on the design. So if we go to the import option, we can actually import more IPC 2581. So I can then go and browse for the file that I want to import. So there's my file there. I'll open that and then we'll import this, and this will physically import all of this data. So it's imported all the layers, so we can then do a compare function here. So let's just start off with everything off. So I've got IPC data and I've got my film data. So if I look at the IPC for the top, and we've got the top layer here. So let's just change the color here, maybe just make this yellow. So I've got the original data, effectively looking at the artwork film, and then my IPC data there. So we can turn on the IPC for the top, and you see the differences between the two designs. There are apps available that will automate this process and write reports, so it's worthwhile having a look at that if you're interested, but in general this is just a visual inspection to check between, say, issue A and issue B of your design. If we look at the colours, what we'll actually see under the layers is the manufacturing classes, so we actually add the IPC underscore film name as a manufacturing subclass. So once you're finished doing your compare, what you can actually do is actually purge this import, and that will then remove that IPC data from the board file that you have.